Don't mind me, I'm just playing a game of checkers. Nobody else is here. I've heard that people actually do this, well, now probably over the internet, but they used to do it by mail or telephone or a lot of different things. If you want to know where we're at, we are at Iron Lace in Bentonsport, Iowa. Right along the banks of the Des Moines River. It's a beautiful day. This is the front porch of Bill and Betty Printy. They've been here in Bentonsport for a number of years now. He's a blacksmith and she does pottery. And we're going to meet them in just a little bit and get demonstrations for what they actually do. But in the meantime, I'm losing miserably and it's just me, myself, and I. Let's go ahead and meet Bill and Betty. I'll turn this game over to somebody else. Hi everyone, this is Mark from the Backroads Channel with Mark and Rich, and we are here at Iron Lace in Bentonsport. Glad to have you along for another edition of the Backroads Channel. This is going to be a good one today because we're talking to a couple of artisans whose crafts date way, way back. You don't hear of a lot of people doing these sort of crafts anymore, and so we're actually going to get to talk to them, and they're going to give us working demonstrations of what they do. So before we get to that, we want to invite everybody to come to Iron Lace in Bentonsport, and on the Backroads Channel, we want you to be sure to hit the subscribe button and get on Facebook and like us there. We greatly appreciate that. So let's head on inside to Iron Lace. We're going to visit Bill's blacksmith shop and then Betty Printy's pottery shop. We're going to see how they craft their trade. So come on in with us. So where are you guys originally from, and how did you meet and get together and start all this?
I was born right across the river.
In Vernon.
And I grew up with 4 brothers and 4 sisters in a little 5-room house.
I bet that was exciting.
It was.
I got a little side story. I was born and raised in Keokuk. And I was not, as I look back on my youth, I wouldn't really categorize myself as a rebellious teenager.
Were teenagers rebellious back then?
That's being kind.
But yeah, we were.
Anyway, at the time I had to be 17. That would have been so. My birthday's the 23rd of July. I made a decision, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought my dad in Keokuk Senior High School had taught me everything they knew. And I told Dad, I want to go see the world. I was the kind of a kid, I was always doing something, here, there, and this. I loved to travel. Dad took us on vacation every summer for 2 weeks, and we'd travel out west. So anyway, Dad decided he didn't really take a liking to a girl I was dating at the time. So we had a few clashes. So I talked to 2 of my buddies at school. I said, you know what? I'm going to join the Navy. Why don't you come with me? So they did, which surprised me. And one of my cousins was going to be the 3rd one. And the morning that we got ready to get on the bus to go to Des Moines to get sworn in, Donnie, my cousin, wasn't there. So I told my other 2 buddies, I said, I'm going to jump in my car and run out to the farm. So I dash out to the Primitive Farm, dairy farm. And his dad was there in the yard, and when I pulled in, I said, "Where's Donnie?" He says, "He's out in the barn milking the cows." And I said, "He's supposed to be going in the Navy with us." I said, "He ain't going nowhere." So I hopped in my car and run back to the bus depot and off to Des Moines. Got sworn in, sent to Great Lakes Naval, not Naval Station. Yeah, Great Lakes Naval Training Center at Waukegan, Illinois, suburb of Milwaukee.
So what did you do in the Navy?
I was what at that time the Navy called a ship fitter, and basically, I suppose if you look at the description of that rate, you'd say you were a plumber. I took care of all the piping on a ship, and then after I finished up at Great Lakes, they shipped me to ship fitter school in San Diego for 12 weeks. And after I finished that, I went aboard ship and went out to the Far East. And the ship happened to be a seaplane timber. And I did in total 27 months on a Taiwan patrol force. You know where Taiwan is. I'm sure you know about all the controversy about Taiwan.
Indeed.
There's an archipelago of islands just off the coast called the Pescadores. And the Chinese and the Taiwanese were always bickering back and forth. And so we had in our task force, we had an aircraft carrier, 3 destroyers, and 5 P-5M Marlin seaplanes, and a seaplane tender, which I was on the seaplane tender. And we patrolled back and forth across that strait. Then we would go down and go through the straits of Morocco and into the Indian Ocean, make a stop at Diego Garcia, going around to the coast of east coast of Africa, and cruise down that channel between East Africa and Madagascar. And us Iowa boys would be leaning on the rail. You could see lions walking on the beach. You think we weren't impressed? We were impressed. But anyway.
About what time would this have been?
1956 to 1958.
And anything you did in the Navy, did that experience steer you toward blacksmithing in any way, shape, or form?
Probably not. Probably not. No. But like I say, I had a lot of great experiences. And you know, I can't believe the way things changed. Our home port, when I was aboard the seaplane tender in the States here, was the Alameda Naval Air Station. You know where Alameda is?
California, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in the Bay Area. There was a big naval station there. We had 2 7,000-foot runways and an 8,000-foot runway, and 3 wharves that could tie up big ships. Aircraft carriers could come in and tie up. Today, it's gone. It's gone.
What happened to it, do you know?
Apparently, whoever was running the Navy at the time decided it really wasn't worth the cost. So they demolished it, sold it to private investors, and now it's all residential homes. And there's not nary a sign of a naval station.
So Betty, when he was doing all that, you were born just across the river, as you said.
She's 10
What
years.
were you doing all that time?
She's 10 years younger than I am.
I was going to grade school.
That's true. Probably.
Yeah. So anyway,
So if this were a number of years back, I would ask you guys, how did you hook up? but the term hooking up has a totally different meaning in today's society. So let's just say, how did you guys meet?
Well, I have been doing pottery in Bentonsport since early 70s. And he's been blacksmithing. He was blacksmithing in the shop down here. And he thought I looked good or something. So he started chasing me.
Is that right?
Well,
Don't you?
yeah, I would be working at, that's the original blacksmith shop down there on the block down. Excuse me, Moses Springfield ran that shop. The anvil was in front of the door like my anvil here is. And I'd be there working. And Bentonsport's not a busy place, really. And I'd see this girl riding her bicycle down in front of my shop, flowing auburn hair, pedal on there. And she would stop once in a while and talk to me. Pretty soon she started stopping more often. And I was single, and she was. Second marriage for both of us. And so one day I got up and she had her shop in Tring Woodworks. So one day I got up and I knew that I went down there and asked her out to dinner. And this is the rest of the story, as Paul Harder used to say.
Wow.
So a message to all you young single guys out there: if you can find love and happiness in Bentonsport, it's out there somewhere.
That's a big one. This is my forge, and we built this forge in 1989. It's modeled after a forge in Williamsburg, Virginia, and it's been in use here at Iron Lace for ever since 1990, and it's powered by a hand crank blower. And I have my fire going in there. The fuel I'm using is coal, and it's soft coal or bituminous coal. And as it burns in the forge, it's transformed into something called coke. Not the kind you drink or smoke, but the kind you burn. It burns at a very high temperature when you put an airstream on it. It's used in blast furnaces where they make steel and blacksmith's forges.
Where do you get it from?
Pardon me?
The coal, where do you get it from?
It comes from a dealer up in Ames, Iowa. And he has a big warehouse up there on a railroad siding. He brings in a rail car load at a time. Comes in 50-pound bags. We drive our pickup truck up there and bring back a pickup load. We use about 2 tons a year. So anyway, that's the forge, and the fuel we use to heat the iron up. This is one of our anvils here, and right now it's the main anvil in this shop. We have 2 shops here. We have this shop, which we built originally when we built this building in 89 or 90, and I don't know, I have got probably 8 or 10 anvils here. We got a beer shop out back. This anvil here was made over 200 years ago by a man named Peter Wright, and the numbers on the anvil indicate the weight of the anvil, and it's used in the Old English system of hundredweight, which is 112 pounds. And each number, like this 3 here, that can be any number from 0 on up, and it's units of hundredweight. So you have to go 3 times 112. Are you good at arithmetic? How much is that?
That's too much for me to carry.
That's 336 pounds.
Boy.
The middle number here is quarters of hundredweight, or 28 pounds. So that number can be 0, 1, 2, or 3. That's all it can be. In our case, it's 0. The last number here, 26, believe it or not, is actual pounds. So to determine the weight of this anvil, you have to go 3 times 112, 336, plus 26, which is
52.
362 pounds. Yeah.
A lot of weight.
And it's an old English blacksmith pattern wrought iron anvil. Now, I have another anvil back here made by Von Brooks of Dudley, England. It's a steel anvil. It's 285 pounds. And it's marked in hundredweights. So those are the 2 anvils that we use in this shop. Another tool we use frequently in this shop here is our forging hammer. This is a little giant crank actuated forging hammer, 25 pounds, rated at 25 pounds. And it's got a flat belt right back there that turns a pulley. It has 2 hard maple clutches in the pulley. You stick your hot iron in here, top die and bottom die, and this treadle actuates the hammer. And Little Giant Power Hammer Company was in Mankato when it started. It went out of business in 1947, which is the year this particular hammer was made. So it was one of the last power actuated forging hammers made by the Myers Brothers.
Making sure your fingers are out of the way before you actuate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's only 25 pounds. Myers Brothers actually made a 500-pound hammer. But, yeah, it was this tall, you know. So anyway, that's the primary tools. And we have lots of different kinds of course, hammers. Okay. This is a blacksmith pattern cross peen. This is called the peen. This is the face. This is referred to as the helve in England. In the United States, we call it the handle. Originally, it was known as the helve. So that's the main hammer that we use up here. We have quite a few different styles of hammers. Lots of tools in the big shop out back. This is a cone mandrel here, and it's used for turning shapes around circles, semicircles, and so forth. And what I'm going to do here for you is I'm going to forge a small hook. Is that okay?
Sure.
Now, tongs. Blacksmiths have lots and lots of tongs. And the reason for that is tongs are size and shape specific. By that I mean, these tongs are made, this is 1/4 inch round stock, small stock. And these tongs were made to hold 1/4 inch round stock. They won't do a very good job doing anything else. So since I'm going to forge 1/4 inch round stock, I'll use these tongs, and I will stick that piece in the fire, turn the blower. This is a Royal Age blower. There's a 4-inch hole in the back and there's a fan inside of there that's turned through a series of gears and forces air down through the blast tube and up through the bottom of the fire. And the more air I put on the fire, the hotter it burns. So we're going to heat up this piece of 1/4-inch round stock. I think it's about 8 inches long, something like that.
Now, do you have a fire going in here all the time?
Well, a lot of the time, yeah.
Does it take long to
There's
get a
an
fire
old-
going?
There's an old forge. I can't recall the name of the city, but it's in Austria. And it at one time employed 200 blacksmiths. There's been a fire burning in the forge there for 500 years.
It's never gone out.
They've kept it going.
Wow.
And you know, that's one thing I've noticed. Us Americans, we're great people. It's a great country. I love it. But we don't have a reverence for history like they do in Europe. We tear stuff down and build new, you know. But yeah, there's been a fire burning in that forge for 500 years.
Do you think it's always been that way here in America, though, or are we just seeing that more
I
in
think
these
we
days?
just grew out of it. It seems like, because if you look at farming, for example, a lot of the beautiful old barns have been torn down, and the reason is primarily there's two reasons. Machinery has gotten so big, it won't fit in there anymore, and taxes have got so high. You know, it's cheaper to tear them down if you're not using them. So,
That's a real loss, though, from a historical perspective.
yeah. I guess, what's the oldest city in the United States? I think it's St. Augustine, Florida. I believe.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know offhand.
And several years ago, Benny and I made a trip to Charleston, South Carolina, just to look at the ironwork. Charleston's just loaded with antique ironwork. So is Washington, D.C. Okay. I had this piece of 1/4-inch round stock about 2,000 degrees. Pull it out, lay it on the anvil, and since it's a small piece, I'm not going to hit real heavy blows. I'm just going to hit kind of light blows. But I'm using a 5-pound hammer, not lifting the hammer up real high. Starting to lose the heat.
It doesn't take long to lose the heat, does it?
The anvil sucks the heat out of it. After you work on there a while, you can't lay your hand on it.
How many times have you inadvertently done that over the course of your career?
I'm sorry?
Laid your hand on something hot without even thinking about it.
Yeah, right. I learned a long time ago about that. And when I'm working more than one piece at a time, I always pick a place on the hearth to lay the pieces while they're still hot. And I know if they're in that spot, they're hot. I've been blacksmithing over 40 years. I don't burn myself anymore.
What got you started blacksmithing?
What got me started? Well, in a way, it was kind of a family thing. My dad was an iron worker, and my grandpa on his side, my dad's side, I call it the Irish side, was a farmer, but he had a forge on the farm for doing repair work. You know, they didn't used to go to Farm King and grab what they wanted. They made it themselves. Now I'm going to heat this up and I'm going to bend it over the horn of the anvil here into the shape I want.
So with the equipment that you have here, what are some of the things that you can make?
What are some of the things I make?
Yeah, with this equipment here, what are you able to do?
I'm dropping this hand here down, I'm going to roll it over, and bend it into a hook shape. I didn't mean to ignore your last question. I have a profound hearing problem. Guess why?
I can see why.
And I didn't get all that last question.
Yeah, I've got to remember what it was.
Is your memory as bad as mine?
Oh, it's terrible.
Mine
It is
too.
terrible.
All I can make. What all I
Yeah,
can make.
with the equipment that you have in here, what are some of the more, I guess, large, extravagant pieces that you're able to do here?
Oh. We've done lots of railings, like stair railings, porch railings, gates, and liturgical work for churches, curtain walls, just. But like I said, I got a bigger shop out back, and we just do small stuff in this shop here.
Probably don't get much call for horseshoes anymore, though, do you?
You know, most of the stuff that we do, and I'm flatten that out a little bit, and I have an assistant. I have an assistant that's doing all the work now. Under my direction. He's been with me 32 years, so he pretty much knows what he's doing.
He should by now, yeah.
I'm going to roll this back, and this doesn't serve any purpose except it gets that sharp point out of the way and adds a little decorative flair to it.
It does.
And I'm going to just modify it a little bit. I like that better. I like that even better. Okay, now I have this end formed. It's going to be easy what I'm going to, for you to guess what I'm going to do now. And that is I'm going to, if I can ever get a hold of it there. Got a good grip on it there. And we're going to heat the other end up. I can get temperatures in this forge that are approaching 3,000 degrees, which I don't want to do because the iron will begin to oxidize about 2,800 degrees. It's hot. And I'm going to do the very same thing on this end. This is an operation blacksmiths call drawing out. We're making the piece of iron longer and smaller.
You know, even for simple jobs, this takes a little time. This takes a little time to do, even for simple tasks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't, if you're gonna be a blacksmith, you can't be in a hurry. And the bigger blacksmith shop, well, and some of them, the smaller, medium-sized shops, the blacksmiths employ what they call a striker. Okay? The blacksmith works on this side of the anvil, the striker stands on that side with a bigger hammer, and I hit, and then he hits, and I hit, and he hits. We alternate hitting. Speeds it up by a factor of 2.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to heat it up again. It's a nice warm day for standing in front of a fire.
I bet you've had some warmer days than this.
Yep.
That's something you probably just get used to after a while, though, isn't it?
You do. And just as before, forge that down. Turn it back. Oh, it's the powder. I want to bring that in just a little bit. And here we have what's called an S-hook. And that's the procedure.
Wow.
For making one.
Pretty simple, but a lot of uses for one of those.
Oh, you bet. A lot of uses. Very useful. Okay, is that enough or?
What are these two pieces of equipment here for?
This is what's called, and I built this is a hammer. I built this, it's called a treadle hammer or an Oliver hammer.
Okay.
And I suppose the way that I got the name Oliver hammer was that must have been the name of the apprentice that built the first one.
That works.
And, you know, a lot of times you need a third hand
Sure.
because you got your tongs, your piece of hot iron, and that's what this hammer does. And it has various different kinds of tools in this rack here that go in there.
So what do? Just press down on that with your foot?
Yeah.
Again, making sure your fingers are out of the way.
Yeah. It's out of adjustment right now because normally those two garage door springs back there are adjusted so that they gently lift it back up.
Okay.
After I got this built, I went down to my local buddy at the tire shop and he got 60 pounds of lead weights and melted them down and poured it in here.
Wow.
So it's a 60-pound hammer.
That's inventive.
When I kicked it down, I didn't kick it hard. But I mean, you know, you can really come down on it.
Well, it looks like you just basically pressed down on it,
Yeah, I
and the
just
springs
pressed
and the
down on
weight
it.
took over from there.
Right. Exactly. And this little gem here is a jeweler's bench. Okay? It's something in the shop I never use, but they're so rare, you just don't see them around a lot, and had a chance to buy this. Bought it, thought I'd put it in the shop just for display. And it has a buffing wheel and a grinding wheel, and there's different things you can put on it. It's driven by a sewing machine belt. You know how the round belts are on sewing machines?
Correct, yep.
But a few years ago, I had a business next door that had a teenage boy. He would not leave this alone. And I kept telling him, I kept saying, please don't, you know. And it's propelled by that foot down there. And he finally broke the belt on. So I just never bothered to replace the belt. But it's operable, and it's got 2 drawers here. Different kinds of brushes and grinders.
What would the age of this be, do you know? What would the age of this be?
Oh, probably late 1800s. It's a decoration now.
But solid as a rock still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't we build things like that now?
I don't know.
Anything else you want to tell us?
No, I guess not necessarily.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of the old blacksmithing trade that's related, of course, and gunsmithing's one, and farrier work's another. If you know what a farrier is.
Sure, for horses, yep.
We have a big Amish population in our county here,
Correct.
and they do all their road work and field work with horses. But the Amish mostly have their own farriers. I shod horses for about 10 years and finally decided there's got to be an easier way to make a living than shoeing a horse. There's an old saying among farriers, there ain't no easy horses. You get jerked around, kicked, bit, and pushed and shoved, and you know. And on July the 23rd, I'm going to live to be 87. It's a wonder. My body's took a lot of punishment.
Yeah, it has, and just the dangers. I mean, there are some inherent dangers in doing this.
Oh, you bet. I only have one functional eye.
Really?
Yeah, my left eye. I was being a smart aleck one April Fool's Day. It was a hot April Fool's Day. I was blacksmithing, and I was striking a chisel. Sweat was running down my brow and getting in my eyes. So I took my safety glasses and threw them on the bench, hit another blow of that chisel, and a piece of the hammerhead, not the chisel, a piece came out of the hammerhead a little bit bigger than the head of a pin, and it went through my right eye. And you know what, it didn't hurt. And I found out at the University of Iowa hospitals later, one reason it didn't hurt, there's not a lot of nerves in your eyes. I had to get antibiotic injections in that eye, one like this and one like that. And people say, oh, how'd you stand that? Well, it was uncomfortable, but it really wasn't as painful as I expected. But that piece of steel on its trip through my eye broke the lens in 3 pieces. And apparently there's a little shelf in your eye where your lens sits on. that went through that, and they couldn't implant lens. So I wore a contact lens for quite a few years, but I don't anymore because I don't work that much anymore in the shop. And the older you get, the more difficult it is to deal with contact lenses. You get a little like this. You know?
Indeed.
They're not easy to put in and take out.
No, they're not.
So I just gave up on them. I get by with one eye. Yeah.
Well, this has been an education, to be sure.
Well, thank you. That's what I like for it to be.
We appreciate this very much.
If you want to step in the shop, we can look at some of the stuff.
Yeah, we'd love to.
This is one of our latest creations here. It's a fireplace tool set with a stand and a poker. And it's textured like so.
How do you do the texturing?
I'm glad you asked. We take a tool that's a spring, it's a spring with a top tool and a bottom tool that has a notch cut through it that creates a sharp edge. We heat the iron red hot, high red, and we put the tool in the power hammer. We have a 100-pound power hammer back there, and we hammer that in, and it engraves a series of straight lines. Then we hold this in the vise, heat this much up, twist it, and then do the next clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. This is the third one of these sets in existence that we know of. One's in Aspen, Colorado. One is right here in Bentonsport, people up on top of the hill. And this one's going to New York City.
Now, I have one other question about that piece.
Yeah.
You probably had one piece to start off with and you split this somehow.
Yeah.
How did you do this on the bottom?
We forge welded that on there.
Okay, so it's another
Yeah,
piece.
it's an add-on.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of our latest creations. We have much simpler fireplace tools, candle sticks, candle holders, and we have a wall rack here for your tack, your horse tack, with horse heads on it. They do kind of look like horse heads.
They do.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I can't even imagine how long it would have taken
Yeah,
to
I
create
know.
that.
The Iron Rose.
Never wilts.
I love
And you don't
that.
have to water it.
How many of these we made, Betty?
Lots. You
I don't
still owe
remember.
me an iris, though.
I don't even remember what year we made the first one.
Oh, I have one that's 35 years old.
Yeah. Some things I make she confiscates.
She wants an iris.
Oh, I have a collection of candle holders that are awesome.
I bet you do.
We go down in the river, and there was a dam in the 1860s, and we find these great big spikes,
Wrought iron.
wrought iron, that are laying in the bottom of the river. And I bring them home, and he cleans them up, and he decorates and makes candle holders out of them. I have 9. We do not sell them.
What were they all from?
The dam that was in here in the
They built
1860s.
cribs out of logs. And crisscrossed them like this, and then drove these wrought iron spikes down through the cribs to hold them together. And the dams several times got washed out. Spikes ended up on the river.
Those are the spikes
Oh
we
my
find
goodness.
in the river.
Now,
Aren't they awesome?
They are.
you probably don't know the difference between wrought iron and steel, right?
Afraid I do not.
these are wrought iron. And here,
They don't make it anymore.
the commercial wrought iron was no longer available after the late 1950s. They quit making it.
Why did they do that?
It's not near as strong as mild steel. So the demand for, when they got the mild steel process perfected, the demand for wrought iron fell off to the point where finally they just quit making it.
But the old wrought iron has all the grains from being in the water for over 100 years.
Well-
And he retains that, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
The thing also about wrought iron is the process for making wrought iron requires so many different heats that they burn all the carbon out of it. Okay? Carbon has an affinity for oxygen. Carbon likes oxygen. And that's what creates rust. FeO2. Okay? And because they burnt most of the carbon out of the wrought iron, it doesn't really rust near as fast as low carbon steel.
Now, listening to you explain this to me, that tells me it's not just a simple matter of taking a piece of steel, heating it on a forge, and banging the tar wad out of it till you get what you want. You've got to know some chemistry,
You bet.
some elements.
Metallurgy.
Yeah.
Yep. This is true.
And he's out of pot and pan hangers. And then I'm always going to the...
Here's a bottle of wine. We make 3, 5, and 6 bottles.
Wow. Wow.
We hope you're enjoying this trip down memory lane. It's a blast from the past, to be sure, with Bill and Betty Pretty. We know you've enjoyed Bill's blacksmithing and some of the things that he's been able to create. In our second segment, we'll join Betty Pretty. She does pottery here at Iron and Lace. She's the lace part of the iron, as you probably already guessed, and we'll see what she's planning to create for us. So stay tuned for Mark and Rich and the Backroads Channel here on YouTube.